Welcome back to the Clare Champions special general election preview. Just before the break there, we were discussing the Ennis vote. Maybe if I could return to you again there. And in an urban area, is it difficult to assess how many people will actually come out to vote compared to a rural area where there seems to be more of a sense of identity in the community?
Yeah, and I think it's unfortunate that people actually don't bother to vote. Sometimes it is always the protest vote that will actually get people out. And I would say that could be one of the big problems this year, because there really isn't a huge vote out there now, the protest vote. Okay, we have the hospital and we have the homelessness, but they are issues that have been going on for quite a number of years. It's encouraging the younger generation. They just don't seem to be bothered. And one of the things that will always affect people is if it hits them in the pocket. And that's what will actually get people out to vote. I was watching social media before I came in here, and somebody had it up, should voting be compulsory? And, you know, it's a difficult one. You know, should people be forced to do something? No. But when it comes to an election, I do believe that people should go out and vote. I believe that if people are going to give out about parties or the government and they haven't voted, I really believe they don't have the right. They are given the opportunity to go out, voice their opinions, and no matter what, there is always somebody there for everybody. You might not like parties, but there is individuals that are actually putting themselves forward, taking that chance, because it's not an easy thing to do, to put yourself out there in front of, 1,000 people. And, you know, a lot of the time, unfortunately, you get quite a number of, of bad comments and abuse. But, you know, as I always say, and it's something that I've been, speaking about in third level colleges and secondary schools over the last couple of years, to encourage people to go out and vote. It is something that's hugely important, especially, when you think of how long it took for women to get the opportunity to vote. But the reality of it is, if you want a voice, go out and make sure your voice is heard.
Brian, should people be fined if they don't vote? In some countries, I think that system is in place.
Yeah, and in some countries it's compulsory to vote. But I think Anne just mentioned something there, that it is unlikely we're going to have another female TD after this election. And I think that's another opportunity missed to rectify the huge imbalance that we have in female representation here in this constituency. Since 1921, the formation of the state, we've had a series between, it was a 5-seater starting out, then a 4-seater, became a 3-seater, now it's a 4-seater again. And each one of those elections represents an opportunity in which you can ensure that you have a woman elected. And I think I did a rough count, about 130 of those opportunities have existed. And only on 3 occasions have we re-elected women to the Dáil. That may be incorrect, sorry, it could be 4. I think Sheila there did twice, Madeleine Taylor Quinn did it on 2 occasions. That less than...
You're talking about a handful anyways. It's
1.5% representation. We don't live, it's clear and obvious we don't live in a democracy. And it's one of the sticks that we should be using to beat Fine Gael on this occasion, is that they're not putting a woman before us, and they're not properly or adequately resourcing a woman on the ticket. Fianna Fáil, to their credit, have had Rita McInerney identified for the last year and a half. They have funded a constituency office for her in Kilrush. They have provided her with the resources to ensure she's not just a token candidate. I'm afraid the same can't be said of the other parties. With obviously the Greens and Roisin You know, but she is. Hopefully, this will be an opportunity that we may change that. But given the arithmetic, it's unlikely. No, and I will be out there supporting Roisin and doing as much as I can for her. But I have to look at the real politic as well.
Just going back to gender representation there, and if there was maybe one or two things or three things that you could be done tomorrow morning that would maybe help to encourage more women to become active in politics.
And, you know, I agree with Brian. Unfortunately, you know, you look at what, you know, Fine Gael, and they haven't got a female candidate, and it is a pity. You know, but the other side of it is they have to put their, you know, best foot forward. And if that is, you know, 3 male candidates, that's fine, because at the end of the day, they want to win seats. You know, it is a pity. I think one of the disadvantages, I think, in the last election was that there was 3 female candidates from the one area. You know, and we were all cut between Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil and the independents. But at the end of the day, just because you're a female, people will, you know, it's not necessarily that women will actually go out and vote for women. You know, you have to have the right candidate. You have to have, you know, a person that is actually, you know, willing to go out there, raise their voice, make sure that they are on the right page, you know, with the topics that people want to hear. I am delighted that, you know, the likes of Trudy Layden has come out, you know, very unusual, and I wish her the very best of luck. But it is going to be very, very tough as an independent. Teresa O'Donoghue, I was delighted to see her announce earlier in the week, because of the fact that she is a very interesting candidate and could surprise people, because she has actually been very involved in a lot of areas around PPN and, you know, different groupings. Obviously, Roisin, I'm not 100% sure from the Greens' point of view. Like, one of the things that really got up my goat today was that Seamus Ryan has now, Eamon Ryan has announced that he doesn't see the point of the motorway from Limerick to Cork. You know, again, it's a sure sign that the Greens are focused on Dublin and are not looking at the rest of the country. And Rita, again, you know, Fianna Fáil are an unusual party, and they need to be a bit more strategic in what they do. If they want to get 2 seats, Timmy needs to learn how to share. And Rita has a good chance, because she is a good candidate in the west of the county. But, you know, at the end of the day, I don't think women really should be a topic. You have to put your best foot forward, and parties will do that. If you're an independent and you feel you have the ability to run in a general election, you go out and do it. If you feel you can make a change, male or female, it shouldn't matter.
But to be fair, females make up roughly about 50% of the population, and that's not reflected in politics.
But Dan, that gender quota thing and gender balance to the ballot sheet, to an extent, has been a bit of nonsense, and has in some cases has, you know, done worse for women than it has helped them, because you must start off with the candidate that is interested and has a good chance of running, a good chance of winning and getting a vote. And if they're not that, then the parties are using them to harbour in a transfer vote from their area. What does that do for gender balance, or for women, or for the area, or for the candidate? You know, so
the gender quotas have been proved to have worked in other jurisdictions where they were introduced, to try and ensure that you have democratic and a reflective a parliament and a system of governance where policy decisions are taken that ensure everyone is respected and affected proportionately.
But it would be better if it was focused and on the agenda, and that the party should try to get there, but to have it as a definite 30%, and mandatory,
Well, you
they're hovering up candidates that haven't the boast of a chance of winning, and that is an abuse.
The first instance
by the back door.
The women have to be before the electorate so they can make the decision. One of the finest TDs we never had walked out the door there a few minutes, and that's Patricia. And she stood in several general elections and polled okay, but nothing significantly. Nothing significant. I think that if we had the processes,
maybe she should have gone independent.
Perhaps
she certainly had the mettle for it.
Yeah, perhaps.
But the other side of it is when you look at the way the Dáil is run in Dublin, when you look at how they work their timing, there is huge issues around that. There's an awful lot of work in the evenings. There's a lot of votes. It isn't like even.
It's not family friendly.
It isn't family friendly. And even this year, in 2019, there was a number of senators and TDs, female, that actually got pregnant, and there was questions around maternity leave. Because it was a whole new thing to them. And that's the other thing I would like to say, that we need to start bringing in the younger generation to actually get them to come in and actually put themselves forward. We need young people that understand what's happening on the ground.
Well, I think to that extent, and this Dáil has been a huge learning curve, politically, for the art of politics in the country, for the parties, and particularly for the independents. You know, they've learned how to align, they've learned how to get funding, they've learned how to become parties, even if it's a loose arrangement, to research, to have quality questions, to certainly, they've checked a few ministers back into place fairly well, and without the yoke of the party whip. And a lot of learning was done this. Also, the fact that Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil had to go and talk to themselves has been a milestone in politics in Ireland and a move forward. So it's great.
Is there not a swing? Sorry, Eugene. Is there not a swing against the independents now, maybe nationally?
No. It was perceived at the time the government was being for them the last time, and at the time the results came in, they said it was such a mismatch, it would never work. The government wouldn't last for 2 years. It was terrible. They formed up. They got into alignment. They've knocked a 4-year government out of it. Quite a lot has been done. And we as a people coming out of a recession were equally in sort of no man's land or limbo a little bit. And it worked great. It worked as good as any
I couldn't say that it worked great.
Well, it worked good enough. As good as any other.
You know, the issue of Brexit was like a large cudgel that ensured that this government stayed. There were many situations where we had Heather Humphreys, where the government could have fallen in different circumstances, and it didn't. It's fortuitous that we got 4 budgets through. They committed to 3. But I don't even think they would have got to 3 if Brexit hadn't become the dominant issue that it could, because, you know, it was the issue.
There, Brian. I think they would have, because they had come to the agreement. They had got down to talking. Fianna Fáil was in repair mode. They weren't for meeting the people. Sinn Féin certainly slipped after Gerry Adams stepped out, and there was nobody rushing to the country until recently. And if anything, the government party lost their nuance for putting out messages. They couldn't say anything right in the last 6 to 7 months. They went Dublin-centric completely, because that's the government which was formed, and they dropped the ball, and now we're at an election.
Just to wrap it up there, just in terms of maybe kind of predictions or likely outcomes, Eugene, if you were to put your head in the block, what's your forecast?
Well, I think you just want the results, or do you want?
Yeah, the result. If you can give me the results.
But I think Pat Breen should head the poll. He's the sitting minister, and as Brian said earlier on, any of them who have been sitting have had great offices. That will tell. I think Cathal Crowe has stepped out into the limelight with a right clip to his heel, and has a real good body of countryside and of population behind him. And I would think he won't be far off second. I feel he's going to do very well. Joe sitting here, he's always had a great core vote, And it hasn't slipped from him now. The last time, with the divide in the party and how they changed it, whether they can change the voting to suit their transfer, it would be a miracle to do that 2 in a row, an absolute miracle. But he's in with a great chance. Timmy, coming off the back of a little bit of scandal, but it hasn't scarred him too badly. I think when East Clare looks at the chance that they may be without a TD or that Republican vote out there, if that gets marshalled right, he'll certainly have enough to get him over the line. He may be, I don't think he'll be as high as other people are perceiving here, he may be down the line a little bit. Michael McNamara, if he can tap in to the Dublin-centric government, the lack of proportionality to the country, it is still no doctor in the village. And the damage that Shane Ross did and the devastation to our villages from his, I think, over-the-top laws, that is there and waiting in the long grass. But if you can tap in to get that revolt kind of vote, an independent vote, he is a strong candidate.
Very briefly, and would you share or disagree in any way with that?
Yeah, I definitely believe Pat Breen. You know, he's been very vocal. There, you know, there was going to be a lot of changes, and there was a lot of jobs going to be created over the last 3.5, 4 years. And in fairness to Pat, he has made the most out of being a junior minister. I believe that Timmy Dooley will get in, and yes, I do feel that there might be a small bit of a backlash, but at the end of the day, people do not want to be without their TD in East Clare. Timmy's there a long time, and people do still have a lot of respect for him. I actually feel that when Joe got back in the last general election, I think Joe should be safe enough. I do believe people in and around the Ennis area will come out and vote for him. He has a good team behind him. He's a fantastic staff in his office, and they will go all out. You know, it's funny, Michael McNamara would be the person that I actually feel will be the one to take the 4th seat. You know, the only thing I would say is I would be watching Martin Conway, but is that going to damage Joe or is it going to damage Michael McNamara? It's hard to know. I think Teresa O'Donoghue might do a little bit of damage to Roisin, so it is going to be difficult. Sinn Féin still haven't announced yet, which is an awful pity because there is a vote there.
Sorry, Brian, very quickly, if you just sum up in terms of what you're taking it.
Okay, realistically, I do think 2 very strong Fianna Fáils. I think they're certainly going to register. Our minister is certainly going to be quite high. Mr. Carey is going to do quite well. But there is still, I think, the Michael McNamara factor, I think, has been important here. His significant presence, he's a fantastic intellect, he's a great speaker, good delivery, great message carrier, and I was a very good member, representative for Clare. So I will say 2-2, but it could be 2-1-1, but very difficult to call.
Those predictions have changed fairly quickly the last couple of minutes. I would like to reflect on one thing you said a minute ago, and that was about Boris Johnson. We don't want a Boris Johnson Ireland, and we don't want that level of majority. We have a great democratic system in PR.
I'm only reflecting.
And I would reflect that any people who's listening and watching this, check into the PR system. It's brilliant.
I know, I agree. I'm only reflecting what I have heard. People want to see stability, and what they have had for the last number of coalition party governments, there has not been significant stability.
I'd like to thank my guests again for joining us today, and I urge everyone to tune in to the Clare Champions live streaming on the day of the council.
And if we don't get this right, we're not giving out tips for champion.